What's up, everybody? We have made it. Welcome to the last two chapters. Having some issues with my tripod, but that's okay. Last two chapters of Pound the Stone by Joshua Medcalf. I am very excited to read these last two chapters. I've already warned you I'm going to cry, so be prepared. My name is Mike Dokter. I'm the high school women's basketball coach for the house basketball team, playing under the Michigan Basketball Academy umbrella, and I'm excited that you're joining us. Again, we are reading through Pound the Stone by Joshua Medcalf, the final two chapters. We finally get to find out what happens with Jason and his journey, and I'm excited to read it with you. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. You're one of those people who obviously reads the last paragraph of a book to decide if they want to read the entire thing. So I won't hold that against you, but I know who you are. Go back and read or watch Chop Wood, Carry Water. Great book, great series. It's the foundation that this book was based on. So, Chapter 62, The Stone Splits. All right, composing myself because this is going to be a good one. As the athletic trainers talked between themselves, the door slid shut. Jason heard the crowd outside, and he silently wondered how this could happen in the biggest moment of his career. He heard the hushed voices of the athletic trainers, and he even heard the rhythm of the cheerleaders trying to jumpstart the crowd and chants as the game got going again. It felt far, far away, like he was underwater. He felt the fiery pain in his ankle, and he pushed away the temptation to start blaming the situation on anyone or on himself. The injury was an accident, nothing more, nothing less. It happened, and there was nothing he could really do about it now. As he sat there on the table, Jason flashed back to what Russ had told him so many times. You are going to go through storms in life, Jason. Do your job so well that you can sleep through them. Can you sleep through the storms, Jason? The question echoed in his mind. He certainly had put the time in pounding the stone, but this was no ordinary storm. A torn ligament in your ankle isn't exactly something you can train for, he thought. It's not like you can play basketball on one leg, right? Suddenly, Jason jolted straight up on the table like he had been shocked by a cattle prod. He couldn't believe that he hadn't thought of it before. He got the athletic trainer's attention and he hopped onto his good leg, a look of pure determination on his face. Can you tape me up? They exchanged confused looks. You mean like to go back and play? Sure, but you're not. Can it get hurt any worse? He asked, looked with a look of steely resolve. No, but tape it up now, please. I'm finishing this game. The look in his eyes told him that Jason was dead serious. Convinced, they complied, wrapped his ankle as well as they could. He thanked them both and hobbled back down the tunnel out onto the court. A glance at the scoreboard told him everything. The Raiders were still down one with 15 seconds to go. He made his way to the bench, and a hush fell as people saw him hobbling out. The players all slapped him on the back as he approached the coach. Jason, what are you doing? Coach Brandt looked concerned. Put me back in. We can do this. Are you serious? You're injured, Jason. I can't. Give me the ball. I can do what it takes. I promise you. How? You have only one good leg. Jason replied with iron conviction. Trust me. I've trained for this. Coach couldn't believe he was doing this, but he nodded. Something in him believed Jason. He watched as Jason put in countless hours beating on his craft, and that consistency had given Coach Brandt a deep level of trust in him. He waved out Jason's replacement, and Jason jogged back onto the court. He did his best to keep off the injured ankle, but even the few moments of pressure on it were a blast of mind-numbing pain. The crowd rose to their feet and started chanting with a growing roar. The energy was going through the roof like it was the NBA Finals. Jason nodded to his teammates who couldn't believe what they were saying. Jason, what are you doing, bro? He simply replied, What do we do when we're up 10 or down 10? The answer came like clockwork. We pound the stone. Goodness. I told you. I told you in the last video, and I told you in this video. I'm not going to make it through this chapter. And what do you do when you only have one good ankle and 10 seconds left? This time they all smiled as they replied as one. You pound the stone. Exactly. That's what I'm doing. Jason nodded. He looked at KJ, who was inbounding the ball. "Okay, just give me the ball, all right?" KJ nodded, smiling. They all knew how insane it sounded to do this. But they trusted Jason. They took their places, and Jason faltered a bit. The whistle screamed, and everyone exploded into motion. Jason whirled around a pick set by Mike, hopped forward, and caught the incoming pass from KJ. At this point, muscle memory took over, and Jason knew that it was his only hope of pulling this off. If he didn't, they would lose the game. As he caught the ball, Jason faked left, tapping his injured foot on the court, and then pivoting hard. He threw down all his weight on his good leg as, whoosh, the defender bit on the move, flying past him, leaving him with a totally clear shot. What happened next might have looked impossible to anyone. What happened next might have looked impossible to anyone who didn't know that Jason had spent his last 3 summers on his footwork. Even then, it was nearly unbelievable. Even without planting his injured foot or shifting weight, Jason used the momentum of his move to carry him forward and shoot at the same time. It looked like a completely off-balance shot. So as he floated back to the ground, time seemed to expand, and Jason could see the details around him unfolding in slow motion. The tumbling form of the defender, who was now just realizing his mistake. The moving figures of his teammates. "Jason, do you still think it's just about basketball?" Like it was happening far away, Jason heard the buzzer sound, and he knew that this was it. There would be no second chances. Everything rode on this. It's not the outcome that matters. It's who you become in the process. A camera flashed somewhere, and in the strobe light he could see the wide-eyed faces in the crowd. Every single pair of eyes locked on the ball as it sailed towards the rim, except for one. From her seat above the bench, Kaya wasn't looking at the ball. She was looking at Jason. Surrender the outcome, Jason. Behind him, the ball dropped closer towards the basket. Trust the process. As Jason landed, rather than watching the result of his shot, he locked eyes with Kaya and smiled. That was tough for me. And you may say, well, it was tough for you because you've been in that situation. No, I've never been in that situation. I've never been that good. It's tough for me to read that to you. And every time I've gone through this chapter, I've cried. Every time. It took me 8 minutes to do that. 8 minutes if you're looking at this. It's not an 8-minute chapter. It's not that long. Every time I've gone through that chapter, I've cried. And the reason I've cried is because of how important it is to understand that if you do the little things, when the big things matter, the little things will allow you to have tremendous, amazing, unbelievable results. Things that seem to everybody else like it's make-believe. Like there's no way it could happen. Like it's impossible. The impossible things that happen, what other people view as impossible, is possible only because you have put in the work to make that thing happen. It's possible only because you know what it takes and you know what you've done. You don't look at it as impossible. You look at it as highly probable. And that's a huge deal. And we got one chapter left and we're going to read it now. I don't think I'll cry during this one, but no promises, man. I'm emotional. I'm sorry. It's happening. I'm not sorry, but you get it. I'm sorry if it's affecting your enjoyment of this book in a certain way or a negative way. Chapter 63, the last chapter. You aren't entitled to your dreams. How true is that? I couldn't even get through the title. All right. Deep breath. Here we go. That was some game, said Russ. It was the next day as he and Jason sat across from each other in the usual booth at the diner. Jason smiled. I'm grateful that you and Jan were able to be there. It was tough, but I drew a lot of strength from having you guys there. Have you decided what you're going to do yet? Russ asked, and Jason shook his head. No. Well, either way, I'm proud of you and the man you have become and will continue to become on your journey. Jan and I have worked hard to try to help you develop grit on the path to mastery over the past few years. And during the next phase, there are a few things to remember. First, a lot of people are going to try to talk you out of things that look impossible. At many phases in your life, they will tell you to give up on your dreams, grow up, and get a safe job, even though those don't exist anymore. And if you're just throwing pennies into wishing wells, then you need to grow up. But if you're earnestly and faithfully beating on your craft and developing the grit needed to live those dreams, then ignore the doubters. I found that a lot of people who quit on their dreams have a lot to say for those who are still chasing theirs, because they have a vested interest in it really being impossible only for the talented few. You know by now that this isn't true. Finally, always remember that mastery is a never-ending process, not some destination. The true greats are on the perpetual journey of constant and never-ending improvement. John Wooden was still taking notes and sitting on the front row well into his 90s. You learned to ride a bike through failure and persistence over and over again, the same way you learned to walk and run as a child. The wisdom I have shared with you over the past 3 years is no different. You must continue to take what you have learned and act upon that wisdom. You must experiment and fail over and over as you put the wisdom into practice in your life. It's not good enough to just hear wisdom or read it. You must perpetually go and learn how it works in the real world by attempting to use it over and over again. People like Martin Luther King Jr., Mother Teresa, Nelson Mandela, and others like them were not extraordinary people. They were ordinary people who were willing to die for the extraordinary principles. They were ordinary people who continued to pound the stone for decades without seeing it split. Nevertheless, they persisted. You have that same power inside of you. You are so much more powerful than you realize. Don't ever settle for average. Don't ever settle for easy. Don't ever forget that you only get one life. You aren't entitled to your dreams. We need you to pound the stone and develop the grit necessary to push our world forward now more than ever. Just remember that with every blow from that hammer and every choice you make, you are building your house. Build wisely. The world is counting on you. The end. We made it, and I made it through that chapter without crying. I'm so grateful if you've gotten this far with me that you're still here listening. And maybe you're just watching to see if I cry again. I don't know. That's fair. That's completely acceptable. But I'm very grateful that you're here. And I'm grateful that you've chosen to go on this journey with me. One of the things I love about the ending of that book is that we all expect to hear and see in the stories that we read the happy endings. And we wanted to know if the shot went in. Did you notice we never found out if the shot went in? You probably didn't notice because I was crying like a baby child. But we don't know if the shot went in. And that's okay, because it doesn't matter. It's not about the results of all your hard work. It's not about the outcome. It's about the process. It's about who you become as an individual in that process. And I just want you to know that I'm rooting for you. I'm proud of you. I'm excited for you. I don't know where you're at in your life. I don't know why you're watching this, but you got it in you. And if you keep pounding the stone and you keep chopping wood and carrying water, you're going to win. You're going to win, and the stone will split. It split for me in many different ways. Not always when I wanted it to, and I'm still pounding in a lot of different ways, and you will be too. And it's about going through that process and getting better in the midst of it and falling in love with that process and what it takes to become better. I'm grateful for all of you. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye now.